it felt like I was constantly having a million thoughts at once, and I didn't even know which ones were mine because it just opened up all at once. And I was like, I've gone crazy. I've lost my mind. And then once I was, like you're saying, you start to figure it out in channels or streams or frequencies, whatever way you want to, the noise got less noisy and I could start to get it from one spot at a time. And it's like, there's a weird story that I tell about this. Another podcaster asked me if I thought we were living in a simulation, and I really sat and thought on it, and I ended up falling asleep. And I woke up the next day, and not only did I know where to find everything I needed to write a paper on it, I woke up with a rudimentary understanding of quantum physics.
Woo-hoo!
Now, I'm not making fun of myself. I completed my educational process in the indoctrination system in grade 10 because I had a child and moved on and needed employment. So I never studied any of this. I've never, it just was there. So there are aspects of self that we can absolutely come in tune with as well, instead of just crashing into them.
It sounds like you're tuning in, like when you were breaking it down. So do you know when you get like the TV or the radio and it's like static, which is all because you probably won't know this, Don. I had a Kundalini awakening a couple of years ago, and that was kind of what happened to me. Like I've been on the spiritual path for a couple of years. I did my meditation, and like I said, I was in this bliss state. I had this Kundalini awakening, and it completely destroyed my life. I subsequently have left nursing now. I can't work anymore. I can't function in normal society because I'm just not of that kind of frequency anymore. And that isn't to say there's anything wrong with that. It's just where I am at the moment. It just isn't conducive to me living a happy and healthy life. But that's kind of what happened. So I kind of went out of my body, and I saw this flash of light, and I've since found it's called You Break the Cosmic Egg. And it was like loads of channels of information were literally just streaming through me. Like, and I felt at times, I felt like I was going to actually vomit because it was so overwhelming. I was like, ah, and I was hallucinating, and I was, I thought I was like, I thought I was a goddess, but not, I mean, I laugh about this all the time because I'm big on the goddess now, but I actually thought I was a goddess because I was like having this like weird psychosis. It was absolutely crazy, so I really can sympathize with that. But what I did find was I was given all this information, and they were telling me about the nature of reality and how it's structured, and they were giving me all these terms, and I was putting them on like Twitter, and I was like, blah, 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 and they were like, what does this mean? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Got no idea. I've got no idea how to integrate that into modern physics. This is just what I've been told. This is just what I know.
David, I'm so sorry. How long have you been here?
Maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, probably.
Oh goodness, I'm so sorry. I had the screen lowered because of what we're doing. Sorry, go ahead, Don.
Okay.
I'm not even all the way through this myself. Like I was telling Stephen about this when we were off air last night. I recently had an experience, and it was like an entheogenic experience, except I was completely sober other than a little bit of marijuana for pain because I had a motorcycle accident years ago, blah, blah, blah. I woke up in the middle of the night and was receiving such a download of information. I was physiologically paralyzed on the edge of my bed, basically rocking back and forth. And much like an entheogenic experience, I ended up like crumpling over. I woke back up the next day and couldn't remember any of it. I had basically the information of the universe flowing through my head all in a single moment. And it literally woke me out of sleep, paralyzed me. I got to experience it, but I didn't get to remember any of it.
Yeah, but it's there now. That's the thing. You've integrated it in your being, so it'll come when it needs to. I mean, Kirsty will back me up with this. I've channeled in writing for probably a really long time, actually, and I just didn't realise I knew what I was doing. But very recently, since we've all like come together, my guides and obviously Kirsten's guides, we've all been having these massive upgrades to our bodies. And so I started channeling, and every time I channel, I mean, Kirsten will probably verify this, it gets more and more intense with every single channel that I do. And I've got to the point now where I slump over, and it's like I do this like thing. It's like what you say. I kind of just rock, and it's like I've got all this information pouring through me, and it's just coming out my mouth. But they're also like giving me downloads and information and like fractal patterns and all sorts of stuff. And it's like, but then when I come to, I'm like, what did I say? I can't really remember what I was saying. But it's there. It's just, coming out when it needs to.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is frequency, because all that information coming in, and my guides have told me, channeling before, it's not really so much about the words, it's about the frequency. And so you get that energetic upgrade, and it's there whether you have words for it or not. So it still is, it becomes part of you, and it becomes it shifts your frequency. You may not even be aware of it in your brain, but your frequency has gone up because you have embodied more of that higher frequency. So it may come through as information, but it also may just shifts the way you see the world, and it shifts the way you interact with the world. And you don't necessarily have to be able to unpick it logically in your brain.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've experienced this, Dom. I know, Kirsten, you have. And I don't know where Diana's gone. And David, I don't know about you as well. But when you have these massive kind of upgrades, what happens essentially is the same when you drink or whatever. It's like you're blowing your aura out, and it's going out, 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 out. And then it's like, oh, I've expanded so much. And then it has to come back in and find its baseline again. And it's like you're finding your level. And that can feel like an energetic hangover. And that's kind of how I know I've been through a really big energetic kind of expansion, because I go out and then I come in and I've got to kind of find my level again. And I'm like, oh God, I feel like I've been on the drink, and it's just literally you're integrating all the information.
Yeah. And when that happens, the best thing to do is get more sleep and drink lots of water.
And ground.
Yeah, coconut water.
Yeah.
When I was those cognitive dissonant moments, coconut water. And now matcha's and mushrooms, but coconut water is so helpful, because you actually need the electrolytes. You're actually physically going through something, and you need the assistance. Fasting is really, really, really helpful to help you go through anything like of a dissonant nature faster.
Yeah, you want to take electrolytes though if you're fasting.
Yeah.
It'll go back to that. It's that electric charge, isn't it? Because that's what you're essentially doing. It's your nervous system.
It is. And the water, you literally are being dehydrated from the inside out sometimes. And I always know when I'm getting an upgrade, because I cannot drink enough water. It's like I just am dehydrating. It's like I've got to keep drinking that water and getting those electrolytes. So yeah, coconut water, that's an excellent. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for that, Diana.
Yes.
Normally I'm just chewing the Himalayan salt or the Celtic sea salt.
I do that too.
So David, what your experience is? Sorry, you've been sat in the waiting room.
Oh, that's okay. So I don't think I heard the question that started this topic. What is it you want to know exactly?
Right. So I think we were just talking about mental illness that goes hand in hand with spirituality. On our journeys, we've all had these things that have kind of tipped it into the batshit crazy category.
Well, okay. So I mean, there's a lot of sides to that coin, because some of that reputation for being crazy is earned, right? because sometimes we actually are crazy. I mean, I know I have been. Yeah, I mean, back in the summer, I experienced something profound, something, I've had a lot of experience. I had a near-death experience. I've had other Kundalini awakenings, but what happened to me in the summer was beyond any of that. And yeah, I did experience a period of time where I was probably legit batshit crazy. And there were some bad actors who were observing me at the time and took advantage of that to make it even worse. So it's kind of funny. I journeyed into the higher spheres, and I engaged in some kind of warfare for for our side, and we were successful. But when I came back here, the forces of darkness, whatever you want to call them, they could see me, and they weren't happy at what I had just done, and they came after me. And the fact that I was batshit crazy didn't help. It didn't help me to absorb that any better.
Yeah, I bet that was difficult actually. And do you know, you made a really good point there, because they are aware of us without wanting to freak people out. You know, there are entities and there are forces out there that are aware of all these people that have come in here and they've come to kind of enlighten the world. And they're going to make it difficult for you. You know, there's the psychic attacks and all that kind of stuff. And I suppose when you've just blown your consciousness open, you're like a massive light beacon. Yeah, and they do come and get you.
Yeah, the higher we rise, the easier we are to spot, because
That's right.
because the light shines in the darkness, right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely right. And that is, I mean, that's also something to really think about when you start to expand, just being aware that, like Diana was saying previously, not all of the entities out there that are going to contact you have your best interest at heart. And so again, like Diana said, discernment.
Yeah,
Discernment.
especially because they don't even have to be evil. So you're not even looking for a signature of evil. They could be good, but they're in for their own agenda. They're in, and it could be a good agenda, but it's their agenda, not yours. You want to deal with the things that are your highest alignment. If you want happiness, bliss, love, and light of truth in this life, it needs to be your highest.
I just want to point out there as well, Diana, every single entity that is coming into this world always has an agenda. It might align with your agenda, but it's always their own agenda.
True. That's true. Exactly. Yeah. If you want it to be aligned with you, but it is always their own agenda. They're equally as alive beings as us, with their own narratives and their own that they're trying to push forward. That's why a lot of them are working with us, because we're the ones. That's what Jane and Seth were working together, because Jane was someone that was in alignment with what would work for Seth. Like, she talks about that often. So that's good to keep in mind.
Yeah, it goes back to that frequency thing, doesn't it? What Dom was saying.
Yes, 100%. So much. And then here we have, she didn't need to be saved. She needed to be found and appreciated for exactly who she was. And I want to add on to this, because this is about no other human and about no other being. I don't know who put this in the group. I like it, but when we're taking that from the self, you are your own savior. So you don't need to be saved by anybody else. You need to be appreciated and seen for who you are by exactly who you are. This is why I like astrology and human design and all those things, because you can start to dissect who you are from an actual energetic quantum lens of what you were meant to be as a blueprint. Yet it's also not going to be 100%. You want to weigh that with what you want. You want to weigh that with who you are. And it allows you to forgive what's going to stay, and it allows you to accept, and it allows you to latch onto the really good stuff and to pull stuff out of you that you might have left in the background, because you need to know thyself. That is so key.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because that's what it comes down to, isn't it?
It is.
Yes.
That's what I alluded to. Like, even with my own awakening, when I was listening to everyone else tell me it was SSP or it was this, or, was I ever in Montauk? It wasn't until I filtered all of that out and allowed myself to think about what was going on and what I was experiencing that I actually understood any of it.
What does SSP mean? I might know the term, but I don't know the abbreviation.
Secret Space Program.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Nice.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's a consciousness.
A lot of those narratives are put out there, and they may have a grain of truth, because a lot of them do have a grain of truth, and some of them have a lot of truth, but they're also put out there to kind of steer people away from looking within and steer people away from what's really going on with them. Because, if you're always looking outside and you're like, oh yeah, I must be in the SSP, that's what's going on, then you're going into that narrative rather than looking at, well, what's actually going on within me. And maybe that resonates for a reason, but maybe it's not exactly that. And so yeah, So it was good for you, Dawn, yeah, because a lot of people get caught up in that and they just go with it, and they don't ever
Yeah.
take the time to say, well, is this really me,
Wow.
or is this just what I'm being told is me?
Absolutely.
That's a good meme.
But
Yeah, a healthy meme a healthy mind does not speak ill of others. And that's
Yeah.
so true. And you're still allowed to discuss people, because I tried a period where I wasn't trying to talk about anyone ever, but then you stunt yourself. You can still discuss, like, so and so's really upset me, but like keeping that language clean and pure of the truth. Don't build something up. Don't try to vilify them. Just speak the truth. What they said hurt my feelings. How they're treating me hurt my feelings. Their dismissal of me hurt my feelings. And keep it in truth, but you could still discuss, because as humans, we're very interconnected, and people are going to upset you even if they don't mean to.
well, it's an
That's
observation rather than judgment, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's true. And so you can go to your friend and say, well, this person said this to me and it really hurt my feelings. And that's not gossiping. You know, if you're going around talking about everybody else's life and judging them, that's a different thing. If you're just
Exactly.
expressing the emotions that came up in you because of what someone else did, that's healthy, because you do need to process that and get that out. And sometimes the best way to process that is to call up your best friend or leave her a voice message on WhatsApp and say, this happened to me, I'm
Yeah.
really upset.
See,
But yeah, so there's a line, and also, like you said, Diana, not vilifying people, because everybody has their own thing that they're doing, and they may not even have intended to hurt you. Sometimes they do intend to hurt you, but even then, it's because they're wounded themselves. So recognizing that when people lash out at you, they're coming from a place of woundedness.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean you should allow them to do that.
No, boundaries are key. Agree.
That's right. If somebody does that to you and you can cut them from your life or do whatever you need to do, you don't need to live with that. And you can love someone unconditionally and say, okay, that person has a lot of wounds and they are not behaving in a way that I want to be around. I love that person, but right now I can't be around this person. And I may never be able to be around this person, because until they're healed, they're not really appropriate companionship for me, because they make me cry or whatever. So yeah, good boundaries are really important.
I think it's knowing that some people are lessons, isn't it? Not everybody needs to be with you forever.
That's
Mhm.
right. That's right.
yeah. So I shared this meme originally, and it was shared by somebody at the church that Sarah and I have been attending, and it really hit home for me, a personal chord for me, because see, to me, this I understand why people could look at this and say, oh, so I'm not supposed to speak my truth ever. That's not what this is saying, at least not to me.
Yeah.
This is referring to talking about people unkindly in rooms that they're not in, not sharing your truth, like, oh, so and so, did something inappropriate to me. That's not what this is. That's speaking truth to something that actually happened, that involved you.
Precisely.
This is referring to talking about somebody else, something that they're doing or have done that either is none of your business or that you don't have any insight to. This hits home for me because there was a personal character assassination campaign that was waged against me by my wife's family and many members of my family for many years. And now I have a book and they don't. But
So hot.
a lot of that came about because they were talking about me, like a lot of them were talking about me in rooms that I wasn't in. And they were making up stories and coming up with all their conspiracy theories about, conspiracy theories. They called me a conspiracy theorist. And then they came up with crazy conspiracy theories about what I was into when I was literally just having a spiritual awakening and trying to write my book. So, yes, be careful. Be careful speaking ill of people in rooms that you're not in.
Yeah, that's
That's what I
right.
have to say about it.
That's true. Yeah.
I just want to go. I know I'm probably going a bit off topic. Well, I'm not actually. I'm bringing it back. But I just wanted to talk about spiritual psychosis and how it relates to kind of shamanism and that shamanic path. Because I mean, a lot of what we go through, are like it's almost like a call, and they call it answering the call, and that's what happens. We have this kind of like earth-shattering event that wakes us up from the Maya or the sleep or whatever you want to call it, and we begin to perceive things. And what can happen is when you have like a shamanic call, you can get an illness. So it can either be a physical illness like cancer or something, that really destabilizes your life, or it can be this like spiritual psychosis, where you descend into kind of madness. And the only way to kind of fix it is to go on the journey. And I think that's what essentially happens to a lot of people, when they're hearing the voices and they're seeing the spirits and all the rest of it. There's a propensity for society in general to go, oh, you're crazy, there's nobody there, what are you on about, who are you talking to? And actually it's because you've got a foot in both worlds. It's like what happened to Don. You need to learn to kind of navigate that, and it's very shamanic in nature.
Agreed. And that leads into here what David provided here. It looks like you've altered it here, because it is all a shamanic journey of awakening. And so the Archangel Samael appearing in your room at 3 a.m. alarming you of some holy war that you're now apparently a part of, but your ass works at Wendy's and gotta be up in 4 hours. Like trying to people life with this is all going on as you're doing a shamanic journey can be very real.
That's true.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. And you do have to learn to navigate that, because if you don't, you may become schizophrenic. I mean, I've noticed that it happens to people when they don't. And I think, that's one of the ways that they keep us from awakening, because it's crazy. And, it's just, and I think that's why a lot of times, and I'm going to go off on the medication thing, but the people I've known who were schizophrenic and medicated, it really screwed them up even more. And I did have one friend who was schizophrenic, and he just learned to deal with it.
Because you're a shaman. Being schizophrenic means you're a shaman, and maybe you have some dark attachments. So shamanically find a way to deal with them. Because like if I could go back and tell my grandma, like, okay, yes, these voices are talking to you, but if you can't stop it, just allow it. But she would let it like drive her nuts, and she believed the narrative that it was not because I right from the get-go knew it was something else. And it's funny that I could be an atheist, but I also believed in interdimensional beings because I saw stuff as a child. Like I saw things that was so viscerally real. There was no telling myself that was a hallucination. I saw them. So I made up my own narrative that I knew about dimensions. I knew we were interlayered. I just knew it. And that turns out to be true. And so with her schizophrenia, I knew things were talking to her that were real. And I knew she could have dealt with it differently instead of going into hospitals and going on the strict medication. And she basically found her best medication in vodka, and she was an extreme alcoholic. We're talking multiple bottles a day. And that was how she dealt. She didn't get to live a happy life. She got to live a tortured existence where she was barely hanging on to being she couldn't go into public much. Like it was sad. And there's a lot of people in that same situation where if they just knew how to shamanically deal with it, they could still be okay. Even if they never shut that voice saying, kill everyone. Like if that stayed, you could still get to a place where that's okay.
Well, like you were saying, that is probably an empty attachment, and she's just really hyper aware. But you do find that with a lot of people, they use drink and drugs to numb out, and that's the same with the medication. It's like, oh, I can function on my medication. It's like, no, you're just prolonging the inevitable, because what actually needs to happen is this massive crisis where you completely dissolve yourself, and then you're basically reborn. And what would happen in the old days, if you were a bit weird and wonderful in the village, they'd be like the shaman or whatever, go, oh, come on, you come with me, and they'd take you off and they'd train you, and there'd be that support there. But whereas that isn't available now because we're in this kind of materialistic I'm going to say cult, really. It's like this medical materialism kind of cult, and the pill reigns supreme, and so does the doctor.
Yeah, 100%.
And
Yeah.
that actually leads into something Diana and I were going to talk about is mental illness misnomers like dementia and Alzheimer's. And if you even look at the etymology of those words, okay, dementia damn near has the word dimension in it. So we know that people are seeing into multiple dimension. The one that I most on the forefront have experienced is both of my grandmothers passed from Alzheimer's. And the most prevalent experience that I can bring to light was at one point, my grandma, my mom's mother, locked herself in her apartment, and my mom finally showed up and got her to open the door a little bit. And she's like, yeah. When my mom got in, my grandmother was holding an armload of her belongings, demanding to go home because she thought she was in the wrong place because she was in an aspect of her childhood mind, but she was also able to see the current aspect because she understood who my mother was. So in that moment, my grandmother was both a child and herself at the exact same time, right? And we in North America are some of the few throughout this entire planet that medicate and lock away our elders and mentally gifted people. Yes, there is some psychosis in this reality. There is some actual mental illness, but I think a lot of this is misdiagnosed and misunderstood. And instead of embracing it, we just lock people away and medicate them.
Exactly.
There's always a way to fix it, isn't there? That's the problem.
Yeah.
And it's just they don't know it.
Also, we're taught a lot of times that our emotions are not good. So, like, I actually had a conversation with one of my yoga students today who's going through a really difficult time. And she said, I think there's something wrong with me because I feel so sad and I want to cry. And I was like, well, that's a normal reaction to what's happening in your life. That's not crazy. That means you need to cry and you should cry because this is horrible. And, I mean, I didn't say that, but we're taught that, oh, well, I'm really depressed, so I need to be medicated because there's something wrong with me. No, if you're depressed, it's because you're not listening to your soul. And you need to take a look at your life and say, why do I feel so bad? And you will find, I think most times, I mean, there may be some sort of depression that's just some kind of chemical thing, but I think most of the time it's that you're not listening to your soul. You're not living your best life. And you need to really sit with yourself and say, okay, what do I need to change? Because this is not working for me. And people avoid that, and they're taught that, oh, there's something wrong with you because you're really sad. Well, if you're really sad in this world, you must be sane because this is a fuck show. Come on. It's like, I mean, that's not all there is to it. And certainly you can find ways to be happy and so forth. But, that really a lot of times you're just having a very sane reaction to a very insane world.
Yeah, because sadness is legit. Just let yourself be sad. But depression is repression. You're depressed because you are repressing yourself. I learned that first from Jim Carrey, who's actually an awakened person. And then there's a song by my favorite singer period, Rory. And she has depression, regret, or repression as a whole song. She was just like us, a starseed, and she's now come out with her music and is awakening. And it's like, and my music helped me with that. The ones I've been making with the AI, like I write it, it's doing something, it's creating something, and it's stepping outside the narrative. Your things don't need to be famous. Your things don't need to be seen even. It's great to put it out there, but honestly, you're making it for you. So if you're someone out there with any kind of depression, because sadness is natural, that you just have to allow to alchemically go through its process. But depression is, there's something inside you that you are repressing. So what is it? It's probably your creativity. It's probably your truer self. It's probably your higher self. It's probably so many things, like things in your life that you want to get rid of, but you don't want to deal with the consequences. Like, people you don't want to say goodbye to because we're attached, because we get very habitual. Humans are very, very habitual, and you need to be aware of that. And ignoring that will put you into repression. There's so many things in this world that'll put us into repression. So, but if you are depressed, find where you are repressed.
Yeah, that's well
Yeah.
said. And depression as well, it's a form of numbing out. It's when you're not, like you said, looking at what's going on in front of you, and you're numbing out because you're not wanting to deal with that. So you shut yourself down, essentially. It could be that you're not in alignment with your job, your family, your partner, whatever. And the depression is basically your body and your psyche screaming out, saying, look at me, look, there's something here that you really need to address. And that's why when you medicate depression, I'm not saying that it's not, that there aren't like cases where medication is helpful, because I think when you're that bad, sometimes if you take a medication, which does obviously help it alleviates the symptoms essentially, and it gives you the mental and energetic space to see things a little bit more clearly without all the distortions going on. But it's not a long-term solution at all.
No, it helps you see how, because I went on them briefly in my darker days. And well, it was actually a couple years, but because my dark days last for years. But it showed me how I could live, like what was possible in life. And then so when I got off them, that was my mission then after, was to find that way of living. And that brings us into Don's post. Don actually made this meme. This is Don's writing himself. So Don, do you want to walk us through your thoughts here and read this out for us and tell us what you were thinking and how that came about?
This is basically the easiest summarization of what I've explained throughout this episode. Is my spiritual awakening was me understanding that I could tap, contact, be in tune with all of the aspects of my conscious existence throughout all of reality. Now, you absolutely don't want it all at once, but you can. I'm still figuring out the process of this, and I'll keep everybody posted, but there is a way to directly tune into each variation of your own consciousness. This is something that's been taken away from us as a collective. We're allowed to tap into the information of all of the variations of our conscious existence throughout the infinite universe. We're allowed to access, that's basically what the Akashic records are. We are source, having every experience possible throughout an infinite existence. I don't have a better word, but you can actually tap into and access these lifetimes, these realities. You just have to know the codes, the way to find the, like Diana says, the center self, and be able to get into the access points of your other selves.
So Don, I've got a question for you. Sorry, I've not actually had a proper conversation with you, and I find your story absolutely fascinating. Is it like you're channeling? And so I always, when I'm going into like altered state work, I can, like, there's different frequencies that you tap into. And it's like, do you know when the old school telephone people, you ring up the switchboard and then they move the thing and they'd put it to a different thing. And that's how I liken it. It's like, but once you've been there once and you've discovered it, you just know the frequency, so you can dial into that frequency and move across.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly it. You're kind of just tuning into a variation of yourself, and then you just sort of have access to that direct line, right? Like, Diana alluded to it earlier, you don't even know when you're channeling. I'll be completely honest, and I told Diana about this. 75% of my podcast is just me clicked into my higher self. I've actually had interviews. I'll even play it by name. Me and Frank Castle had an interview. And he got a hold of me the next day. He's like, bro, what did we talk about? I'm like, I am so glad you said that, because I don't remember past the first 5 minutes. And we sat there and for almost 2 hours broke down source beings. And it was not Frank and Dawn. It was both of our hires just having an online conversation and explaining reality to everybody. I was in the back seat. Dawn wasn't there, right? My body was here. The personality that I've developed in this reality wasn't in control. I was streaming source information through this channel.
And when you do that, so when I tunnel, it's almost like I'm still there, but it's like I'm in a car and I'm in the back seat, And whatever's happening is happening in the front seat, and they've kind of got the wheel, and I'm kind of watching what's going on.
Yes, I literally said I feel like I'm in the back seat. And we should
Yeah.
definitely have this conversation, Samantha. I would love to have you on my show.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to come on. Yeah, definitely.
That's how it was for me when I was on the other side. When I had my experience where I mean, it's kind of like Dante's Inferno, honestly. I like saw all the different levels of heaven and hell and all that stuff. It was almost like I was there. I was feeling it. It was me. I got to experience it, but it was like I wasn't the one making the decisions. It's like happening, and I was just along for the ride to experience it. It was weird.
So you like in a,
yeah.
is it like a cinema or something, David? That's
Like
just
what?
kind. So did it feel like you were kind of in a cinema? You were just watching it.
No, that's like a dream. This didn't feel like that. This felt like this is my life. It felt as real as this, but it's like I wasn't the one in control. I was just along, and I know why. I know why it was that way because they told me afterwards. It's like, oh, this is like your test run. You're getting to see what it's like to be in this state, but it's too much for you to have full control. So you just get to see it and feel it. So okay, and yeah, that was enough.
Like you were riding in a transformer.
Like what?
Like you were riding in a transformer. Like the transformer was doing all the battle stuff.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Is that a bit weird?
Kind of. I mean, it was like I was in a body, but and I was experiencing it, but I wasn't like I couldn't change the story. I mean, I guess I could. There were times where I did, but it was more like remembering than living through it, I think.
Right. Where's Diana gone?
I don't know.
I
Diana
do actually get
when she comes in and she like, yeah. No, I was just really fascinated because I've never had anything like that. So I've had dreams where they've seemed really, really real, and then it's really strange, and then I've woken up and gone, oh, I'm in a dream, and it's not. I'm like kind of waiting to wake up, and I don't.
Well,
I don't think anybody's ever had anything like that before.
In the summer, what I experienced, it was almost like I was on another timeline where the ascension happened, and or it was getting ready to happen, and I had to go back to the ninth dimension to get reinforcements or something. And once that happened, it was like I was on this whole other adventure, and I went to a lower version of Earth, and I went to hell and another version of hell, and I went to the lowest version of hell, which was this quantum supercomputer where when they steal souls from people, that's where they put them. And then from there, those souls can be kind of farmed out. Like you think of human trafficking. It's kind of like a version of that, the worst version. And and then I saw the fourth dimension quite a bit, and then there was a version of the fifth dimension and the seventh and the ninth. Basically, what happened was after I came back up from hell to Earth, it was almost like, oh, we solved all the problems in hell, but now there's still big problems on Earth and in heaven because it turns out the disease we were trying to fix was up there too. So then I had to go to the higher realms, and we had to battle evil forces there. And eventually, in the ninth dimension, there was a fallen Arcturian who was kind of they kind of said he was like the new Satan, and we had to defeat him. And then after that, it was that whole timeline started to kind of unravel, and I was back here in my skin on July 1st, and for the next 2 weeks, I experienced divine psychosis, Mandela effects, and a few attacks. Also, I was attacked by a few people with entities in them, and not just that. That was also when my life went crazy. So yeah, it was a lot happening at once.
Yeah, it sounds like it was intense.
It can be a lot. And you know what? One of our commenters here just posted something. It goes with one of the memes that got lost behind my computer. So yeah, the hospitalization is a very real threat a lot of us can face. And we kind of have to pretend we're cool. And one of our memes, it doesn't have a picture, but it says, my therapist, or why aren't you being honest with me? Because I don't want to be hospitalized. Because the truth is you can't go to a natural therapist. This is why I came online as a counselor, and to do this, to talk to people during their awakening. This is what I do. I bring people through this because you can't go to a regular counselor. So back in my day, when I went and tried to get help, I was sent to a psychiatrist, and they spent like maybe 10 minutes, not even with me, and then just wrote me prescriptions. And that was it. And anytime I went in for follow-up, they just wrote me different prescriptions. If I had like complaints or something, I would say, oh, just a different prescription, until they eventually put me on Wellbutrin, which I found out after is basically crack Butrin. And it's what made me go full on nuts, because it drives you nuts. And you don't, like, there were certain ones like Cipralex or something did me good for a year or two, but honestly, they're good for a tiny taste to know what's to do better. And we don't want to be hospitalized. We need to be allowed to go through our processes, which to the average Joe that's unawakened is going to seem insane. They're going to assume we're schizophrenic, and they'd want to lock us up. Even us now, if we were to go to a therapist now and try to tell them our stories, even though we're all in a healed place or healing places, they would still be like, oh God, you need to be hospitalized, because they don't believe us. They don't understand dimensions. They don't understand reality. They don't understand entities and the way we're layered. And they are not equipped to help us. So all of you out there struggling with mental illness, and I could probably not supposed to say this, but I would not recommend going to a standard therapist. I would recommend reaching out to people like all of us here, reaching out to people online, reaching out to those that are coming up in YouTube and X and all these things, because there's healers coming online, and you're probably one of them yourself, but you might need help in the process to just talk it out, to hear you're not crazy, to hear what's talking to you and get advice on how to deal with it and how to set boundaries, how to be sovereign and discerning, how to come online in the middle pillar. Like, there's all these things that people like us know that will get you there, because we've lived through it, not because we're smarter or holier than thou, but because we've lived through it. We've gone through the alchemical fires. We still continue to go through them, because as long as we're 3D human, there is still density for us to alchemize and to work through.
Yeah, I do want to just say something. So when I was doing my nurse training, I had to do a section of it in like a mental health facility. And there was people in there. I just want to say that genuinely were not very well. So I do think that's one.
If you're a danger to yourself, or others, that's I think the line should be. If you're about to do something to yourself and you can't stop, or you're going to do something to someone else and you can't stop, then go ahead.
However, on the flip side of that, so when I was having a lecture, so we had a mental health nurse that came in and gave us a lecture on mental health, because we have to have a broad spectrum of understanding, obviously, to be a practitioner. She talked about this. They brought this woman in, and I think she was just a bit wacky. I think she got drunk and been a bit silly, and which you tend to find if somebody has a substance or they drink or whatever, it can like set off an episode of psychosis. So they brought her in, and she was absolutely fine apparently. And they was like, "Oh, I think we need to section this lady." And they were like, "Why?" Well, she's going on about tarot cards and how she like tells the future. And they were literally, and then the nurse had to say, "No." Well, she's got these things on her wrist. She said that these things, and it's like a crystal bracelet, and she's saying that they've got like properties, and it's like amethyst, and it can like calm you down. And she had to literally say that, I'm not being funny, but you can't section somebody for having an amethyst bracelet and doing tarot cards. I'm not. If that's a genuine true story.
Yeah, I believe it completely.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Don.
One thing I want to throw in is they had labeled me borderline personality disorder, depressed, and attention deficit disorder. And it wasn't until I took myself off of the medication. Now, this medication was so detrimental to me. I am not giving medical advice at all, or mental advice. If I missed a dosage, it felt like I was having some type of neurological stroke. My tongue would go numb. My face would hurt. I would get numbness in my entire face. I would almost have like a Bell's palsy episode if I missed one dose of this medication. I looked at my wife and I had finally had enough. I said, if I go into any type of health crisis, please call me an ambulance, but I'm doing something. And it was about 2 weeks later that my spiritual awakening started. So guess what they were doing to me noggin? They
Yeah.
were me down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got tingles done listening to that, head to toe tingles.
Yeah, those things are dangerous. I was bedridden for like 2 weeks when I went off them. I just went off cold turkey. I was like, well, because I got fired. That's the stories collide there. People that know my story. When I got fired, I lost my health insurance, and those pills are expensive. So I was just like, F it. They'd basically stopped working at that point anyways, except like the Wellbutrin. I'd already gone off that because it was nuts. And then so I was like, enough is enough. But you're bedridden for like 2 weeks. Like Jordan Peterson was most of us have probably heard of, had to go into the hospital. He was so because he'd been on them for such a long time that he almost died, he says, because they were so
That was the
severe.
benzos, wasn't it? The benzodiazepines are fucking,
Yeah.
you do not want to go on them at all. But I just want to interject, obviously, as a medical professional. If you are going to come off of medication, I really wouldn't recommend it cold turkey, because what essentially is that you were both absolutely right on. They are serious drugs, and they alter your brain chemistry. They also like the way that you produce hormones and everything. So just to stop them cold turkey can actually kill you depending on what you're on. So I would definitely recommend that you wean yourself off.
Yes, I would not do what I did or suggest it, because like she said, I felt like I was dying for up to 2 weeks. Like I was physically withdrawing, mentally, neurologically. It was torture. Like my brain hurt because it was in chemical withdrawal.
But I think that's probably, it's part of your journey, and that was meant to happen, wasn't it? But that's essentially shocked your system, because there was all sorts of stuff going on anyway. And that withdrawal, and I think it was part and parcel, reading between the lines, that you thought, you know what, you said to your higher self or whatever, by doing this, it was like, right, he's ready now. He's made the choice. Because whether whether you did it consciously or not, that was a choice to step into your power. And it's like, right, he's ready. But also the process of coming off of that medication would have absolutely shut the shit out of your system, which then allowed the conscious mind to move out and the other aspects to move in.
I think you're dead on. I think you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, it's very linked up. It's very linked up. And I had the same I got borderline personality and bipolar disorder, because if you're most artistic people are going to be borderline bipolar disorder. You mean you get manically energized and then that falls away? What cured that wasn't medication. It was learning about the law of rhythm. It was learning that like my hyperactivity needed to be grounded, and deep breathing, which I'm always telling people, there's a reason. The things I'm always repeating to people are because that's what saved me. And that's deep breathing through the nose, because when you if you feel yourself getting too excited, pull it back in, because you're going to do yourself a favor later. And that's one thing I boo-hooed about a lot too, is like, oh, I guess I'm not allowed being happy, because it's true. That's a little true. Like it's like you are allowed happiness, but it's going to change into like just a peace, a bliss, a joy. Instead of, I used to, honestly, when I was crazy, I was more happy. Like there was periods where I was more happy, but then there'd be weeks where I was manically depressed and unable to move. But I would get a couple of days of manic happiness that would just be like the best time of my entire life. And there was like, that was part of the reason I resisted my upgrading, is because I loved and lived for those times when I would be manically happy and be like almost like extra human, like be better than I normally was. And it took like bringing them together.
Yeah, you made a good point there about the manically happy. Go on, Dom, sorry.
No, I was just going to like totally agree. Go on.
No, I was just saying, because when you go from one extreme to another, you've essentially got like a really potent injection of this experience of happiness, but it's not actually real happiness. It's like a high. It's like the organic version of a chemical high.
It's
Which
true.
is what you're chasing.
You're
chasing it, then, aren't you?
Your system probably is getting flooded with extra dopamine and serotonin. You probably are getting that, and that's why you flatline after.
Yeah.
That is exactly the medication I was on. Was they did blood tests and crap and said I did not produce enough serotonin, so they put me on venlafaxine, which I was on the highest possible dose. Now, the other flip side to the story I told is if I'd have ever accidentally mistakenly taken 2, I would have been in hospital for a serotonin overdose. It was literally at the maximum amount where if I took any more than what I was supposed to, I would end up in hospital. If I didn't take it, I went into what I described earlier.
Which either
So,
either is really
absolutely.
dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a good place to like bring it to a close because we've discussed like we understand mental illness. Like we understand it's tied into awakening and we understand how painful that is. So like when we teach you things, when we tell you things, it's not coming from someone that, oh, you don't know what it's like. I was big like that back in my blaming days. I didn't like blame people, but I'd be like, you don't understand what it's like. You didn't have my childhood. You don't know what this feels like. You've never, but as we all awaken together, you realize is that every human has their pain. Like the universe made sure of it in this realm. I don't know. Once I started to like stop being that kind of a narcissist where I thought I was the only one in such pain, that I realized everybody has such deep pain inside them, whether it's a teacher or students or their parents or all of it or siblings or girlfriends, boyfriends, wives, husbands, whatever caused work, whatever caused you or causes you, your process, your pain, it's just part of the journey to get you to awaken. And I know that sounds horrible. And I went into my states of being like, oh, this sucks. Why am I here? This world's terrible, because you can be like that. Or you could just become the spiritual warrior you are meant to be and go at it knowing that you can beat this, that you can become a better and bigger person than you ever thought you ever could be, because that's what the alchemical process does. And yes, it will be pain, but you can get used to that pain and do it like a warrior would. So let's go down the line and just like give people your final thoughts, what you want them to know if they're suffering with mental illness, of how they can alchemically or whatever you want to say to heal themselves and to put themselves on that better path.
I guess I'll start, and what I would say most of all is what I learned so far in my journey, and this is just my own current understanding of myself, is just that listen to yourself over outside inner influences. Sorry, I got stuck on that word. As much as possible, because there's a direct communication with self, and you'll be able to self-diagnose better than anybody can externally.
I agree with that, Don. And I would say also, you know, there are lots of ways to do that. You can sit in meditation. You can go out in nature. I recommend taking your shoes off, going outside and putting your bare feet on the ground. That really helps a lot. Just that simple thing will bring you back to center. And then you can listen better to because usually when this is happening, it's sending you a message, and it's just learning to discern what that message is. And also everybody's different and everybody's going to have their own thing. But the thing is that also seek out people who are spiritual themselves and have gone through like people like us who can kind of listen to what you have to say and say, okay, well, this isn't, you're not freaking out. This is, I mean, maybe you are freaking out, but you're not crazy. This is, this is part and parcel of the process.
Beautiful. And David? Oh, we can't hear you, David. Sorry.
Your mic's
Sorry
off.
about that. Thank you. When I had my NDE, you know, one of the things that I was shown was that most of the source of pain and what we call mental illness it can be traced right back to trauma. So especially trauma inflicted against children. So, and you could probably draw a line from that all the way back to, you know, when Cain murdered Abel, honestly. But so it's like this disease. Every time someone inflicts pain on somebody else that doesn't deserve it, it's like, well, that person then is wounded, and so they then create their own defense mechanisms to protect themselves in the future from being hurt. So maybe if they see someone else that lashes out or that looks like the person that hurt them, well, then they're not even going to give them a chance to hurt them. They get them first, right? They lash out, or it might not even be that dramatic. It might just be I go left instead of right. But regardless, a decision has been made because of fear and pain experienced in the past. So what I was shown is the only way to defeat that disease is to choose love and forgiveness and kindness and truth every time. And you can't control if someone else is going to do it, but you can control if you do it, and that stops the disease from spreading.
Perfectly put. And Samantha, let's hear your thoughts. Oh, you two were mic'd.
Sorry, my dog's being a bit of a princess. Yeah, so I agree with what everybody said. Really, you've all made some excellent points, and I think we've really covered some great ground on this. The final thought that I'd like to leave people is that you're not alone, because I think that's one of the biggest things when you're going through this. You can feel really alienated. It can feel like you're taking on this massive challenge, and you've got nowhere to turn to. There are people out there, even just drop me a direct message if anybody's struggling. I might not be able to help you personally, but I can most certainly listen to you or signpost you. And I think it's just approaching other people with care as well, and being aware that even if you're not going through that yourself, people need compassion, really.
Yeah, 100%. And compassion for self, and a willingness to bring your will online and to do the work that needs to be done to heal yourself, because you are your ultimate savior, but you are more than equipped to do. Every single one of us here are equipped to do it. That's part of the mission of this earth, and you're all capable of it. And if you need help, I'm sure you can reach out to any of us and ask us questions, and we would be happy to answer and help you through it. So thank you so much for being here, everyone, today. It was great to see you back, Dawn. And always, Kirsten, Samantha, and David, thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next time.